renters, or condo and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Macy's Labor Day sale is going on now with limited time end of summer specials like great deals on back to school looks, and shop our lowest prices of the season on furniture, mattresses, and more 15 to 65% off. Or use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 20% off even more great deals. Star Rewards members can earn faster during Star Money bonus days at Macy's. Details at Macys.com/Star Money. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Everybody, great job. Next up for our 5th grade class recital, we have Samantha.
10 times better performance can make a big difference. Castrol Edge Motor Oil gives your engine 10 times better high-stress performance. Castrol Edge, better oil for maximum performance. Now through December 28th, Castrol Edge and Edge High Mileage Motor Oil are on rollback at Walmart.
Claim based on sequence 9 test under high-load conditions versus API-SP test limits.
There once was a dude named Sid. He never won and felt disgusted. He got the winning edge, his friends would allege, all for just listening to SportsGrid. If Sid can do it,
so can you.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
A new week begins live right here on Football Full Circle. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday, following Labor Day weekend and the first full weekend of the college football season in 2024. Plenty of recaps and reactions come your way for the entirety of the Week 1 slate, as the 5-day consecutive run of college football that started on Thursday through Saturday, Sunday, and Monday has now come to a close. We will talk about Florida State and its failures to begin this season, and Sunday night in Sin City between LSU and USC. A new AP Top 25, Scott, is set to come out in just a few minutes following week number 1 and entering week number 2. And it's the first game week of the year in the National Football League as well. So much to get to here until 1 p.m. Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
Yep. And as far as our holdouts, Ben, we got a little bit of everything, right, in the NFL. We got one that's continuing in Hassan Reddick. We got one that's seemingly ending in Trent Williams. And then we still have the one that's kind of in purgatory, with the Chase, Jamar Chase with the Cincinnati Bengals. So we got a little bit of everything in the NFL. And this is where we just, all the over-unders and this and that and props and everything. Today, in the next couple of days, is the day we really just kind of isolate who do you think is winning the Super Bowl. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely so. And who is going to win their week 1 openers as well? Win totals, divisional prices, conference odds. All of that informs how we judge and evaluate these teams throughout a season. But some week 1 early lines here on this Tuesday as well. Just 48 plus hours out from the season debut on Thursday night inside Arrowhead Stadium between the Chiefs and the Ravens. But Scott, first let's start with some college football. The game to end out week number 1 on a Monday night in Tallahassee. Florida State returning to the States inside Doak Campbell for its second consecutive ACC tilt to start off this season. And the same story as the Dublin disaster on a Monday night against Boston College. Florida State loses by 15. 28-13, the final as BC starts the Bill O'Brien era with a huge outright victory as a 16.5-point underdog on the road in Tallahassee. Scott, FSU becomes the first team in at least the last 10 years of college football to start the year ranked inside the AP Top 10 and lose each of its first 2 games to start a season, both to unranked opponents.
Wow, that's amazing. Really, normally, the better teams will schedule a couple of cupcakes, to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
But I'd say that was not a fluke last night, Ben. I was working in-game live, so I had a chance to watch a good portion of it, quarter my eye. That BC team, from start to finish, opening drive, they didn't score, but they marched right down the field. The next drive they scored. That was not just a bad Florida State performance. It was actually a good Boston College performance, but the story's got to be Florida State going to 0-2, right? Ultimately, that is the story. Listen, FanDuel last week, and I brought this up on a number of shows, they were offering 8.5 still after they lost to Georgia Tech. And I was telling people there is no way in the world that team is going 9-2 the rest of the way. I don't know what number they have now. They might not have a number after a second game, but that team is in trouble. I don't know if Mike Norvell's in trouble. Might be, but boy, that team with, as I like to call him, DJ Ukulele, I don't know if they're going to become bowl eligible, let alone win a national championship like they had hopes of doing.
And this is an FSU team, of course, that was 13-0 last year, running to an ACC championship, spurned by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Some thought that the Irish opener against the Yellow Jackets would be a statement, still with some anger from last year, or maybe bouncing back and showing some resolve against Boston College. Not the case. And Scott, I really think you could make the argument that either on Monday night or over in Dublin, Florida State didn't lose on a fluke. It wasn't like there was a bad bounce here or there or a couple of times that allowed the underdog to win outright as a double-digit dog. Georgia Tech, a 10.5-point underdog. The Eagles of Boston College, a 16.5-point underdog. Florida State got dominated by both. Both Georgia Tech and BC were just the better teams. Boston College on the ground last night, 263 yards, 5.1 yards per carry. Meanwhile, Florida State, 16 rush attempts as a team for only 21 total yards. Some of that game dependent. Boston College dominated the first quarter. Florida State on a quick 3-and-out. It was its only offensive possession. Although we couldn't really tell what the clock was saying last night, we still know that Florida State was not on the field for a long time there in the first quarter. And Scott, FSU scored to make it a one-score game. BC responded on a 8-play, 75-yard drive where 7 of them were runs, and they were the dominant side over FSU. Again, Florida State played the two worst ACC rushing defenses in the conference from last season to start their season, Scott, and they barely were able to run over Georgia Tech, less than 100 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. Last night, 1.3 yards per pop against BC, who put up 263 yards on the other side.
That's amazing. They didn't get their first down, Ben, until midway through the second quarter. That's how bad it was for them on offense. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, yes, they lost a lot of guys from last year's club. I get that, but you bring in DJ, you think that's going to be, halfway decent, at least maybe not as good as Jordan last year, but still, for them to play this poorly 2 weeks in a row. Listen, guys get upset, teams get upset, but I wonder how many teams as double-digit favorites have lost back-to-back games like they have. Can't be too many, I'll tell you that.
I don't think so, Scott. I was trying to find those numbers. It's not as easy to find last night, but we do know FSU was a double-digit favorite in both. They lose outright. DJ Uiagalelei yesterday, 21 of 42 for 272 yards, a touchdown and an INT. Meanwhile, on the other side, Thomas Castellanos, who is the quarterback for BC, was huge against FSU a season ago. Last night, 106 yards through the air. Fine, 2 touchdown tosses, more than 70 yards on the ground. One of 3 Eagles to run for more than 70 yards yesterday against Florida State. So a great debut for Bill O'Brien, and now Florida State in a tailspin. Scott, one of the good things about the 12-team era of the college football playoff, FSU is not necessarily eliminated, but what compounds a disastrous 0-2 start, not just 0-2 against non-conference foes, winless out of 2 games in the ACC. Slim to none. And Slim is opening that door right now that Florida State can come all the way back to even contend for an ACC title or a spot in that conference championship game. They entered the year as the favorites at plus 290. It's now a 42-1 price on the Seminoles to win the ACC crown.
Yeah, I tell you, it would take something. Like, the only thing they have in their favor is, as goofy as this may sound, they didn't lose to Clemson or North Carolina State. So if they lost to those teams, then you'd be losing a head-to-head tiebreaker. But they lost to 2 teams that don't figure to be challenging for the ACC championship end, but realistically, it would take a whole heck of a lot. First of all, they'd have to play, obviously, a whole lot better, which who knows if they're able to do that. And then they'd have to have a lot of breaks with at least these ACC teams all losing a couple of times. So it's their season's basically done. If they ever needed a bye week, this is it, right? And we had Jeff Dawson on last night, and he said something that I didn't realize. I'm assuming it's true, they actually stayed a couple of extra days in Ireland, which I thought was, I kind of understand it. You're over there. You don't want to do the sightseeing before the game. You want to get all prepared for Georgia Tech, right? But maybe I don't know when they came back. Tuesday, Wednesday? I mean, how long did they see? He said a couple of days. Maybe that played a role in his thing.
Florida State did look sleep deprived in either of the games over in Ireland, maybe dealing with some jet lag or coming back after the loss to Georgia Tech and falling to Boston College. Georgia Tech, by the way, winning by 20 plus in its first game back stateside against Georgia State on Saturday. The ACC might be wide open. We'll talk about the rest of week number 1 around college football on the other side of the break before we dive into the first game week of this National Football League regular season in 2024. It starts in just over 48 hours in Kansas City. Come back and join us on FFC.
Think about it. We give you sports gaming strategies and information at your fingertips whenever you want it. Is this a great country or what? This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
On Friday, NASA cut 2 astronauts from the next crew to make room on the return trip for the 2 stuck at the International Space Station. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. NASA's Nick Hague and Russian Alexander Gorbanov will launch this month aboard a SpaceX rocket for the orbiting laboratory. The duo will return with Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore in February. NASA decided it's too risky for Williams and Wilmore to fly home on their Boeing Starliner capsule, marred by thruster troubles and helium leaks. Bumped from the SpaceX flight, NASA astronauts Zena Carbman and Stephanie Wilson. NASA said they could fly on future missions. The U.S. has seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's plane, according to the Justice Department. A Homeland Security investigation discovered the plane in the Dominican Republic. After the U.S. government seized the plane, it was flown to Florida on Monday. Maduro was not on board. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
If I was to describe this sandwich in one word, I would say magical. Hi, this is Jamor, and the little thing that I love about the Chick-fil-A honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich is that extra oomph. I go back and forth from the spicy filet to the original filet. I get into the sweetness of the honey, then you have the extra kick from the spicy filet. The combination alone takes it over the top. It's award-winning.
The Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich is back with a bite. Try it with the original or spicy filet, now for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
You may or may not be a good SportsGrid listener. Test yourself. If you've ever blamed your losses on forgetting to do the funky chicken under the last full moon, you may not be a good SportsGrid listener. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
A 5-day run of college football to start week number 1 in full of the 2024 campaign. Ended on a Monday night in Tallahassee, included a marquee matchup, Scott, on Sunday night in Sin City, out in Las Vegas. 13th ranked LSU taking on number 23 USC. Our third and final of the ranked versus ranked games that we had in week number 1. And it was a good game back and forth, really throughout the entirety of the fourth quarter. LSU tied it up with just about 2 minutes to go at 20 all. USC took the football back and stormed right down the field. Woody marks the game-winning touchdown for the Trojans as USC wins 27-20 over the Bayou Bengals. The Trojans were a 4.5-point underdog, a total of 65.5 between 2 of the 3 best scoring offenses in the sport a season ago. Stays well under. The defense is better, but the quarterbacks in their second career starts, Miller Moss for USC and Garrett Nussmeier on the other side for LSU, both pretty impressive in the season opener in Vegas.
Yeah, pretty remarkable how last night's game was almost a carbon copy, Ben, of the Sunday night game. Underdog and the under both hit. USC has one possession in the first quarter. Florida State has only one possession in the first quarter last night. So it was actually pretty similar games. But I tell you, out of all the drives, right, the Moss drive to close out the game in essence, because LSU had 8 seconds left. But that one drive to close it out, boy, pressure galore, right? Hit that beautiful pass down the left sideline that created the penalty as well with the targeting. Coming of age, who knows, right? It's only one game, but that LSU defense was very good. USC's defense, I mean, out of all, but you got to be surprised. We were expecting 70-plus points, and it was anything but. And it wasn't a fluky thing. It wasn't like long drives and then like turnovers. It was the defenses actually playing well. So, but I give USC and Moss a lot of credit because that last drive is not easy to do, and he was able to accomplish it.
Yeah, looked great in the 2-minute drill in really both of their opening or their final drives in either half. Miller Moss, 27 of 36 for 378 yards and a touchdown. You mentioned the great deep ball down the seam to Kyron Hudson, who made 2 sensational and ridiculous one-handed snags on Sunday against LSU. He was the leading receiver for Southern Cal, 5 grabs for 83 yards. Garrett Nussmeier on the other side, pretty sound for LSU, 29 of 38 for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an INT. But Scott, something that stood out to me, again, I thought the defenses and how the game would play to that total would really tell the tale potentially for what these teams were going to look like and their overall outlook for 2024. Could the defenses be better as they were porous in both spots last year? USC only allowing 117 yards, still over the century mark, sure, and still 4.5 yards per carry. But last year, they were the worst rushing defense in the Pac-12, giving up better than 184 yards per game. So some growth for USC under D'Anton Lynn. And Scott, never easy for 2 quarterbacks to make their second career starts in a neutral site game in Las Vegas and a top 25 matchup to start off a season for 2 ranked schools, especially when you have to be the heir apparent to the 2 recent Heisman winners in the sport and the 2 guys that went 1 and 2 in the 2024 NFL draft. Miller Moss taking over for Caleb Williams. Garrett Nussmeier bode his time in Baton Rouge behind Jaden Daniels, and both were very good. But again, one of the stories of the game, Brian Kelly, 3rd straight season at LSU, opening up in that marquee matchup on the Sunday night of week number 1. In all 3 years now, the first 2 against Florida State and on Sunday against USC, Brian Kelly's Tigers have started off the year 0-1.
Yeah, and it's the little things, Ben. I know this is picking it, but you go back to the LSU, not last drive because they had 8 seconds left on the interception, but the drive before that in which they kicked the field goal to tie the game. They had it deep in USC territory. It was 2nd and down. USC only had 1 timeout left. They throw it in completion, and it was just a little swing pass that really the kid from Topeka High could have completed, but Nussmeier, and it wasn't even close to being a completion. Because of that, USC didn't have to use a timeout. They don't get the first down. They got to kick the field goal, and they leave a good minute and a half left on the clock. They complete that little swing pass. They get a first down, and they're either going to kick the field goal at the end of the game to send it to overtime, or maybe they get a touchdown because they get the first down. It's a little thing like that. It just, the guy played well, he had 6 touchdown passes in a bowl game last year. I mean, I think he's going to be pretty good for LSU. Maybe not Jalen Daniels good, but it's like little things like that. As a head coach, you look at it and say, that's where we lost the game. We didn't continue the drive. We left too much time on the clock.
Yeah, 20 points only for LSU, a team that averaged 45.5 as the best scoring offense in college football a season ago. The Bayou Bengals price moves back ever so slightly in the national championship odds. Still one of the 10 best numbers at 35-1. Unlike what we've seen out of Florida State, their season not derailed. And frankly, Scott, in the expanded 12-team college football playoff era, I hope we get to see more of these marquee matchups to start off a season. But a big, big win for Lincoln Riley entering year number 3 after only 7 in the regular season last year. Some other scores from Saturday. The first 2 ranked versus ranked games we have. Georgia dominant in the top 15 tilt in Atlanta over Clemson, 34-3. The Bulldogs easily covering as a 10.5-point favorite. Total of 48 and a hook does stay under. Elsewhere, Scott, late night Prime time in College Station. Notre Dame on the road, 23-13, the victory to spoil the debut of the Mike Elko era. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish went outright as a 2.5-point dog.
Yeah, that was impressive, but their defense was phenomenal. It really was. I wasn't exactly impressed, Ben. I'm a Notre Dame guy, but I wasn't exactly thrilled with Riley Leonard's performance. But maybe we'll give him a pass because he had a lot of success at Duke, but that he didn't shine too well. But that defense was unbelievable. And going on the road, hostile environment, and that's a real good win for Notre Dame. I got to throw one at you. If you're buying the Kool-Aid, as I'm starting to do with Cam Ward in Miami, Ben, take a look at their schedule. They play absolutely nobody this year. No Clemson, no North Carolina. They could go undefeated. They really could.
And Miami now the favorites got it plus 170 to win the ACC, not only because of the statement in the swamp, but because of the rest of the conference struggling to start. Some more college football thoughts on the other side of the break on FFC.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1928, Ty Cobb records his 4,189th and final career hit as a pinch hitter for the Philadelphia A's. Cobb's .366 average is a major league best in a career that spanned 24 seasons. 22 were spent with the Tigers. Cobb's career started in 1905 and ended in 1928. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
New research reveals you can learn overnight by smelling strong odors combined with spoken instructions while you're asleep.
E equals MC squared.
Neurons associated with smell are hardwired to the brain centers of learning, memory, and emotion. While you're asleep, sniffing cigarette odor mixed with the smell of decomposing fish and rotten eggs makes you want to quit smoking. Stimulating the olfactory system, your sensory environment, smelling while sleeping may supercharge learning anything. Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you. So now you can get the winning edge anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you. If you've got an earbud. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
The debut of Camp Ward in a Canes uniform on the road in Gainesville on Saturday. One of the marquee games we had, Scott, week number 1 and that Saturday slate. Ward throws for 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. Xavier Restrepo, a couple of scores in more than 110 yards as Miami makes a statement in the Sunshine State, winning 41-17 over Florida, easily covering as a short 2.5-point favorite in the swamp. You made the point about the Hurricanes. You look elsewhere around the ACC, Florida State already has 2 conference losses in conference play. Clemson got trounced by Georgia, not an ACC game by any means. Virginia Tech falls to Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville. Good. A lot of people had high hopes for the Hokies. NC State tested by an FCS foe week number 1. Miami now enters week number 2, the favorites to win the ACC crown at plus 170.
Yeah, I mean, how can't they be, right? I mean, you look at that performance. Now, it'll be just like Miami to lose to Florida A&M this week, right? I mean, could you see that? Absolutely. A Florida A&M team, by the way, that it was 13-1 or 12-1, 13-1 with the bowl game last year, and has won 2 games this year. So they're a smaller team, but they are a good team. But I mean, who else in that conference? At this point, after what we've seen these first week and change games. I mean, and you look at that schedule, Ben. I don't know if FanDuel has for them to make the playoffs, but knowing that the ACC champ is more than likely getting an automatic bid, maybe they lose in the ACC game to the championship game to somebody, but I don't see unless something crazy happens. One loss at most. I mean, it's at absolute most for them.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. An even money plus 100 price now on Miami. 9th best to make the college football playoff. 22-1 on the Canes, who were 40-1 entering the opener against the Gators to win the national championship. Plenty of positive market movement. Miami does not have to play Clemson nor NC State throughout their ACC slate, and they host Florida State. And who knows what that will hold by the end of October. Have to be incredibly pleased with what the Hurricanes put on display. For Florida, it's kind of the story of how the season could go for UF. It was the first of 8 opponents ranked in the preseason poll that the Gators have to take on. It's why the win total was 4.5. They haven't gone under that since 2017 in the final year of Jim McElwain. And by the way, Scott, if Miami makes good on the ACC title price, now booked as the favorite at plus 170, it would be the first ACC championship in football for the Hurricanes since they joined the conference back in 2004. Scott, some other games that we had. Penn State goes on the road to Morgantown, and after the long weather delay, remains dominant. They win 34-12 over West Virginia. The Nittany Lions just a 7.5-point road favorite. Easily covered that number. Great defensive effort in the first game under Tom Allen. In the offense, with new offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki putting on a display. Drew Aller finding Harrison Wallace III for multiple touchdown strikes. Penn State looking the part of a top 10 team on Saturday.
Yeah, that was really the perfect storm, if I could pardon the pun here, right? Yeah. You go into a real tough place to play, Morgantown, right? And if you saw highlights of the game, Ben, first quarter, it's beautiful. I mean, you think you're just 85 degrees, sunny, suntan lotion, right? And by the end of the second quarter, it is just a torrential downpour. They have to wait 2+ hours to resume the game. How many fans actually stayed for that? And that great atmosphere and everything else for the fans, it was gone second, just gone. So that's why I mean it was like the perfect situation, for Penn State to get in there and get a win and get out of there. So, but I've said this heading into that game, and I love West Virginia, the whole world over. I didn't know one fan outside of Dave Sherapan who went to Penn State that actually liked Penn State, right, in that game to cover the spread anyway. But teams like that, they don't lose. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and maybe that's it. They don't lose to the Indianas and the Northwesterns and the West Virginias of the world. They can have good teams, but they don't. That's what separates them from everybody else. They don't get upset. Every blue moon maybe, but they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and that's what Penn State did.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question for the Nittany Lions this year, can they beat the teams they're maybe not supposed to, or will it even really matter? Only Ohio State on the schedule for Penn State. Looks difficult. A road trip to USC for sure. But those are the spots for the Nittany Lions who do not have to play Michigan in the regular season for the first time in a very long time to get to a Big Ten title game potentially, or maybe a college football playoff appearance. It is game week in the National Football League. There's a lot to get you caught up on in terms of some contract news from over the weekend and what it means for the opening weekend of the NFL season. That's next, live right here on Football Full Circle.
The winning edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The deadline for the Mountain West and the two remaining Pac-12 teams to come to an agreement to extend football scheduling beyond this season came and went on Monday. Oregon State and Washington State, the lone pair of Pac-12 teams, they'll likely play an independent schedule next season. Iga Swiatek has reached the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open perfect so far. Swiatek next faces American Jessica Pegula, who she eliminated in the 2022 U.S. Open quarterfinals en route to one of her 5 Grand Slams. The latest AP Top 25 football poll comes out today. The Week 2 poll delayed because of games on Sunday and Monday night. On Sunday, number 23, USC beat number 13, LSU 27-20. Then last night, Boston College pulled off the upset of number 10, Florida State 28-10, the final. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Get big deals for days at Target's long weekend sale. Let's go. Like 20% off denim, tees, dresses, and shoes for the family. Then round out your barbecue with Doritos and Ruffles party-sized chips. They're on sale 2 for $7. Or get 30% off 12 packs of soda when you buy 3 with Target Circle. And save even more. Find new lower prices on many grocery and household items you love today and every day. Target's long weekend sale ends Monday. Restrictions apply.
I love it. Doors take us to summers away or winter adventures and afternoon getaways. Your dedicated Fidelity advisor can help you open those doors by working with you on a comprehensive plan to help you reach your wealth's full potential. Because doors were meant to be opened. Visit fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimum supply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
If you think the winning edge is about luck, you're just not paying attention. It's about strategies and odds and information. Mostly it's about listening. So when we say get the winning edge, basically just keep it here. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
It is game week number 1 of the 2024 NFL season. And Scott, we had some contract news bright and early on this Tuesday morning following the long holiday weekend to set the stage. The holdout in San Francisco has reportedly come to a close. Trent Williams and the Niners agreeing to a rework deal. What exactly the fact and the figures look like right now, we're not entirely sure. But what it means, the best left tackle in the sport is now going to show up to practice today, hoping to get ready for the 49ers season opener 6 days away. It ends out week 1 on a Monday night against the New York Jets. But in the last couple of days, the 49ers extend Brandon Ayuk. They make Trent Williams happen. He gets his paycheck. And now 2 key pieces to this 49ers team, the favorites to win the NFC once again, now in camp and ready to go.
Yeah, last 17 games, 0-4 for Trent Williams when he doesn't play are the Niners, 12-1 when he does. So fluke, maybe, but, those are pretty solid numbers. So you want to get the guy done. It's not like he was a free agent or anything like that, but these players just realize that they got to strike while the iron is hot. I have different emotions about this. Part of me says, Ben, listen, you're under contract. You get a nice, $20 million. You're not making chump change here. Maybe underpaid, but still, you're making halfway decent money. But then you go to the player side, and you're like, you got to make it. The owners are making it. Everyone else is making it. And, contract or not, you got to strike while the iron is hot. So, but from a fan standpoint from San Francisco, you got to be thrilled. No matter what the deal is, apparently it's going to get done. He's in camp, gave you the numbers. They're obviously so much better with him. And this is the luxury, right, of being able to pay a quarterback like they are next to nothing. They're paying a quarterback $40-50 million. It's hard to do these things, but San Fran has the luxury of paying Brock Purdy next to nothing because it was still on his rookie deal. And, you bend over backwards to try to win a Super Bowl.
And that bill will be due for Brock Purdy at the end of this year. What that means for the roster construction by the Bay, that remains to be seen. It's been an interesting few days for the 49ers. The optimism with the extension of Brandon Ayuk, now getting this deal done with Trent Williams. Scary scenario on Saturday, as we all learned, that their first-round draft pick, Ricky Pearsall, was shot in San Francisco in an armed robbery. Thankfully, it was not as grave as it could have been, but he will be on the non-football related injured list for a little bit of time. Expected to be okay, expected to make a full recovery, but it's been an interesting few days. Now as the 49ers get ready for week number 1, they end out the season, Scott, or end out the week, I should say, against the New York Jets. It's only a 3.5-point spread. When the lines became available for week 1, the Niners were a 5.5-point favorite against Gang Green, but Aaron Rodgers and the Jets have seen some positive movement in the marketplace, optimistically in the odds component. They'll enter the year not only as just a 3.5-point underdog in San Francisco, but also as the preseason favorites to win the AFC East.
Yeah, little surprised the line is that low, but maybe it's just because they realize, okay, Aaron Rodgers at least is going to try and play. They didn't play in the preseason, but still you got to inch closer and closer, and here we are game week. So maybe that's why they realize, okay, this Jets team actually can be pretty good. But I would have figured that there'd be a little bit more, but he's going back home. He's from the Bay Area, all that hoopla and everything else. So you don't see too many monster spreads anymore in the NFL. You really don't. Cincinnati's got the biggest number. For the most part, every single game is 6 points or less. So even with the great San Francisco 49ers, even them at home, maybe you just won't see those crazy numbers this year, Ben.
Yeah, it is interesting, Scott. A team that was favored in every game, including in Super Bowl 58 against the Chiefs. Of course, they came up close. They will enter the year with the second best price, only 50 cents behind KC in the Super Bowl market. 6-1 for San Fran, plus 550 for Kansas City. Those are the only two teams at a less than 11-1 number. You got to go to the Ravens at 11-1 to find that third best price. We'll talk KC and Baltimore in just a moment. But elsewhere, Scott, some contract potential news, or at least in terms of availability for week number 1. You mentioned Cincinnati. 9.5-point favorite are the Bengals at home against the NFL's worst win total team, at the very least, the New England Patriots. It's the largest spread of week number 1. But will Jamar Chase play? That is the question now in Cincy. He missed practice earlier this week. Zach Taylor was asked about his availability for Sunday. Taylor, who's been spurned, kind of speaking a little bit ahead of the narratives around Jamar Chase and his contract issues throughout training camp and preseason, just pretty much said what the theme has been with Cincy and Jamar Chase. We'll take it day by day. Scott, ultimately, week number 1 on Sunday. Will Jamar Chase be out there for the Bengals?
I think he will. It is funny how he's had to backtrack a couple of times, right? I think his initial earlier in the week when asked about it was just, he's going to be there. These players. I think he wants to say it out loud. Like, these players aren't going to miss a paycheck, right? But so he leans towards, of course he's going to be there. And I'm sure Chase's people say, don't say that. So then he had to backtrack from that. Then he had to sidetrack a third time saying, well, I'm not really sure. You know what? He's got 2 years left, Ben, on this contract. And I get it. As we talked about with Trent Williams, you're a player. You do what you have to do to try and get the best contract. But I would be shocked if Cincinnati gave him a new deal. That's just not happening. That's not how the Bengals run their business with the Brown family. So is he really going to miss a paycheck? For what? I mean, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. You got 2 years left. It's not even 1 year. So I think, ultimately he will be playing. Where does the line go? Because right now there is some doubt. I mean, is the line built in that he is playing, or is the line built in that he's not playing? And if he does play, when they announce on Friday, does it go to 10.5?
Yeah, Jamar Chase is one of those rare wide receivers, Scott, or maybe non-quarterbacks that would definitely move a line based on his status. I think the expectation is that he plays, and thus the 9.5-point spread. I actually learned this from my co-host on the early line. Of all 32 NFL owners or organization groups, whatever you want to call it, Mike Brown is the one that makes the least and is the only one that does not have a net worth over $1 billion. A lot of that is tied to Cincinnati's football wealth, and that's why we see some of the decisions made in the front office. I do find it interesting, like you mentioned, Jamar Chase is under contract this year and next year, still the 2 final years of his rookie deal. We have said, Scott, it's why it probably would have made sense earlier in the offseason, well before game week, to get a contract extension done, because he is going to make Justin Jefferson money when that deal is signed. And if that is the case, you'd rather average it out over the final 2 years of his rookie deal, just keep him happy entering 2024. We'll see if a new deal gets done at any point this week. For Mike Brown, who infamously said earlier as training camp was getting started, the offseason is the time for contract discussions, not noticing that they had just spent 4.5 months in the offseason.
Yeah, he's a pip. He really is, So the question is not so much is he going to play. Like I said, I'd be shocked if Jamar Chase didn't. But is he going to give 100% though, Ben? Is he going to be ticked off on the football field? He's kind of doing the right thing now, I guess, by having a sit in, not a sit out. If you want to get technical, so he's kind of there. He's just not participating. So that shows, I think, that he is interested versus just completely sitting out. But that would be the concern. But the Bengals have a long history of being cheap, right? I mean, listen, if they put their franchise up for sale, though, Ben, they would get $3-4 million. I mean, that's just the going rate for any NFL franchise. So he may not have it in his bank account, but if he wanted to, he certainly could. So I don't know if that plays a role or not with Jamar Chase, but listen, you got 2 years left. I in a lot of ways, I kind of admire the Bengals. Listen, there's your deal. You got 2 years left. And really a third year if I wanted the franchise. If I really wanted to be a jerk, you got 3 years before you really can hit free agency. So,
yeah, there's not as much of an impetus to get this done right now. It's not like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, or even Brandon Ayuk, who are all coming up on the final year of their deal entering 2024, where, of course, T. Higgins, who had played out the entirety of his rookie contract. Plenty more as we get you set for week number 1, the first game week around the National Football League. We'll look at some of the early spreads and catch our eye up next on Football Full Circle Live right here on SportsGrid Radio.
We are the unfair advantage for news, odds, and information on daily sports events. The key word is unfair.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
On Friday, NASA cut 2 astronauts from the next crew to make room on the return trip for the 2 stuck at the International Space Station. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. NASA's Nick Hague and Russian Alexander Gorbanov will launch this month aboard a SpaceX rocket for the orbiting laboratory. The duo will return with Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore in February. NASA decided it's too risky for Williams and Wilmore to fly home on their Boeing Starliner capsule, marred by thruster troubles and helium leaks. Bumped from the SpaceX flight, NASA astronauts Zena Carbman and Stephanie Wilson. NASA said they could fly on future missions. The U.S. has seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's plane, according to the Justice Department. A Homeland Security investigation discovered the plane in the Dominican Republic. After the U.S. government seized the plane, it was flown to Florida on Monday. Maduro was not on board. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
If I was to describe this sandwich in one word, I would say magical. Hi, this is Jamor, and the little thing that I love about the Chick-fil-A honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich is that extra oomph. I go back and forth from the spicy filet to the original filet. I get into the sweetness of the honey, then you have the extra kick from the spicy filet. The combination alone takes it over the top. It's award-winning.
The Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich is back with a bite. Try it with the original or spicy filet, now for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC. It's week number 1 of the 2024 NFL season. The first game week, and we are only 2 days away from the season debut inside Arrowhead between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Scott, I guess we should have shared some contract news as it pertained to what we had already seen in San Francisco. Trent Williams going to be out there, we would assume, if he can rev up in time for week number 1 with 6 days away. Hassan Reddick might not be rushing after Trent Williams or Brock Purdy or anybody there for the 49ers. Last reports from ESPN's Adam Schefter, between Reddick and the New York Jets, there really hasn't been any growth or improvement. It does not appear likely that Reddick is going to get a new deal or end his holdout with New York anytime soon.
Really doesn't, Ben. Living here in New York as you are, you get a sense like these two sides are as far apart as can be. And, if I'm the Jets, and we'll go Niners and even Bengals. You appreciate, okay, the guys are holding out. They want more money, meaning Trent Williams and Jamar Chase. And you get that, but you still get the sense, though, that ultimately they want to play football. They want to win games. I would be at the point, if I'm the Jets, that I'm saying to myself, you know what? I don't want to give this guy money because I don't know if his heart's in it. If he's willing to stay out this long, if he seemingly made some promises that he was going to show up with the Jets, even if he didn't get a new contract if they traded for him. And that's the kind of the word that maybe he's changed his mind on that. And if he's so adamant about this, a guy that's that old, I'd begin to wonder, like, if I'm going to hand this guy $20-25 million like he's asking for, maybe his heart really isn't into it. Because if he can stay away this long and turn down decent money like he's set to make this year, I'd just begin to wonder about that if I were the Jets.
It's so interesting, Scott, because I don't know necessarily what the contract situation conversations were when the Eagles and the Jets agreed to a trade. I'm sure New York had to speak to Hassan Reddick before and be like, hey, we're trading for you. We know you wanted a new deal from Philly, couldn't get the job done. We'll work out something here. I can't imagine there would have been a deal on the Jets side of things if they would have asked Hassan Reddick or looked at that and not have done their due diligence to figure out what that contract figure he wanted. And so I think if you're a Jets fan, you're probably thinking, like, we've never had this guy on our team. We don't really know what he's going to mean, what impact he is going to have for the New York Jets. But when you look at Hassan Reddick, a Pro Bowler each of the past 2 years, 2 years ago had 16 sacks for Philadelphia. He's a guy that's had at least 11 sacks, Scott, in his last 4 seasons in the NFL. It's a guy that could make a pretty strong dividend to what is expected to be a really good Jets defense. It's just a fascinating situation because he's never played for New York, so you're not entirely sure how to feel about him, I guess.
Yeah, I would let you know, again, we're all these insiders, Ben. I always have this pet peeve with these so-called insiders, right? Where is the real story? Even if the Jets said, all right, you know what? We're not going to give you the money, Hassan, but we're going to come in, we're going to acquire you, we're going to use you for 1 year. We're a win now, absolute team. We're going to do everything possible to get 15-plus sacks for you again. Then you hit the open market, go knock yourself out. But was that made, evident to Reddick? And Reddick is backtracking on that. Did the Jets say, we're going to give you the money you want? And now they're backtracking. I mean, so what is the real story? Because you're right. You can't make a trade for a guy who's holding out without knowing what he wants and whether you'd be willing to reach that, or at least have some agreement like, okay, you're not going to hold out with us, right, if we acquire you? Because they had permission to talk to the guy. I get the sense that the Jets were going to bring him in for 1 year, and they did, and now it's Reddick that's saying, nope, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm not showing up. You got to give me my money.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that ultimately plays out, if it ever does reach a natural conclusion. So, Scott, we are just more than 48 hours out from the season opener on Thursday night in Kansas City. So let's take a look at where the line stands at this moment. The Chiefs, a 3-point home favorite in KC against the Ravens in a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, in which KC went to Baltimore and won outright as an underdog. 46.5 is the total. It's early still, 48 hours plus out. But, Scott, we've looked at this line all summer long. How do you feel now that it is officially game week in the NFL?
Yeah, a big game, right? I mean, for obvious purposes, it's the start of the season, but, this is worth 1.5 games. You, if you're Kansas City, we'll just use, you beat Baltimore. Now you got a 1-game lead over them, and the head-to-head tiebreaker, which the NFL uses for, best record at the end of the season. Could it be, such a crazy notion that Kansas City and Baltimore have the best records in the AFC? So there is a lot on this game. I had this general rule, Ben. I don't lay 3 points with home teams. I don't have the numbers. Just watching this stuff over the years. the 3-point exactly, not 2.5 or 2 or 3.5. The 3-point home favorites, I just noticed, don't win. And they're so enticing because basically you're getting the better team in a lot of ways to win the football game. So that said, I'm going to break that rule, and I'm probably going to go Kansas City. I think they realized what happened last year, losing to Detroit opening day. Maybe the same thing happens. Maybe it's a deja vu all over again, but I'm going to grab Kansas City at home. I'll lay the 3. I was hoping it would go to 2.5, but I don't think it will. 3 is a monster number, right? It would probably take a big swing for the boys in Vegas to hop off that 3. I don't expect that to happen.
Should be in a very important number between two teams still battling for that top spot in the AFC. Of course, in all 6 years that Patrick Mahomes has been the starting quarterback for KC, they have at least reached the AFC Championship game. In 5 of the 6, they hosted the AFC title game. Only last year in Baltimore was that outlier for KC, and they have played in 4 Super Bowls in those 6 years, winning 3 of the 4. The 2-time reigning champs at home to start a new season, looking to do something that nobody else ever has in the history of the National Football League. That's win 3 straight Lombardi trophies. 8 teams, Scott, have had the opportunity to win 3 in a row. They've gone at least back-to-back as an NFL Super Bowl champ. 3 of the 8 have missed out on the playoffs entirely. Only 2 have reached a conference championship game. 3 have lost at some other point in the postseason. Nobody has ever even played in those 3 consecutive Super Bowls in hopes of winning a 3rd straight Lombardi trophy. Plenty more to come around the National Football League from Thursday to Friday night in Sao Paulo. We'll talk about it next here on FFC.
For the record, we love sports gaming. Always have.
That's why we never dated in high school.
Enhance your life.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
We're live right here on Football Full Circle for just a few more moments on FFC. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. Scott, we love week number 1 in the National Football League as it is game week, and I'm guessing they have already left or are about to leave that being the Packers and the Eagles as they travel to Sao Paulo, Brazil for the Friday night opener to this season. The Birds and the Packers with Philadelphia, a 3-point favorite in Brazil, a total of 48.5. Scott, it's now a 3-point spread. When the line opened up, it was only 1.5 in favor of Philly. A lot of optimism for the Eagles this offseason. Not that the Packers have dwindled in terms of people's outlook this year, but more so just stronger favor of Philadelphia. What do you make of that full field goal spread for the Eagles?
Yeah, a couple I shouldn't say goofy, but a couple things to consider anyway. One, I guess they have a whole bunch of forest fires, Ben. I was reading where they were actually thinking the game might not be able to be played. I mean, I don't know how bad it could be, but that's a concern. And then I guess the whole country of Brazil has eliminated Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. They're having a big dispute over that, so you're not going to be able to tweet for the football game. But that said, on the field, I'm going to buy into Philadelphia this year. I got to see it to believe it as far as their turnaround from midway really through the point of last season. Everything was great, but with 10-1, and then things just completely fell apart. I'm thinking that's going to be the aberration because they were terrific 2 seasons ago. Neutral site game. I do have my questions about Green Bay as well. Finished on a great high the way they closed out last season. So it's really the antithesis, right? Green Bay played great to close out last year. Philadelphia played lousy. But I still think Philadelphia is the better of the two teams. I would take Philadelphia laying the 3.
Yeah, as would I. The Eagles are going to be my pick to win the NFC this season, but I think it's a really good game because of what Green Bay brings into this year as well. As an underdog a season ago with Jordan Love, 8-4 against the spread, 6 of those 8 covers, an outright win. They covered by an average margin as an underdog of nearly a touchdown per game. I don't think there'll be an underdog in all that many games this year, probably not 12 as we saw a season ago, but 2 teams optimistic, of course, about their outlook for 2024. A couple of other games, Scott, that really catch the eye of the Week 1 Sunday slate as we are now here in game week. The Falcons host the Steelers as a 3-point favorite. Over-under is 42.5. Arthur Smith makes his return to the ATL. Russell Wilson gets his first start as a member of the Steelers. And, of course, it will be Kirk Cousins' debut in the ATL. I really look at this game, Scott, and I'm fascinated by the total, 42.5. We expect the Falcons to be one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL this year. But the Steelers have not necessarily been the greatest offense the last few seasons. But now Arthur Smith is the OC. Russell Wilson is the quarterback. We'll see how it plays out. I actually lean to the over for that game to think that Pittsburgh's offense is better. But it will be interesting if it stays dead under or the Steelers score 10 points only against the Falcons, what the reaction is going to be for Russ as the quarterback in Pittsburgh in general.
You think the Falcon fans are going to give Arthur Smith a standing ovation? I kind of doubt it. This game and Dallas and Cleveland, Ben, are 2 of them, and I suppose there could be a couple more, but it's just like, we don't know. What do we really? Are we confident? Do we know what we're getting out of the Atlanta Falcons? I mean, they should be good. Are we confident what we're getting out of the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell now at quarterback? I mean, they should be better than last year. So it's like, which team kind of fulfills that the first week anyway? Same thing, I think, with Cleveland and Dallas. I don't know what we're getting out of the Dallas Cowboys. Who knows? Feast or famine with them. And I did like Cleveland. Nick Chubb not being available to open up the season, kind of hurts the situation. But, 2 pick-em type of games. But, Atlanta and Pittsburgh in particular, I could see both teams going 11-6. I really could. And I can kind of see both teams going 6-11 if things go completely awry.
A 2.5-point spread in favor of the Browns in Cleveland. New name for the stadium, by the way, Huntington Bank. Now the sponsor for Cleveland. That also sponsors the stadium in Minneapolis where the Golden Gophers play their college football. So the bank in the land is what it might be referred to. It's got the highest total of the weekend, Sunday Night Football in Detroit, 51.5 for the Lions and the Rams.
That's a good one. I mean, on paper, you should get 27. I was going to say 27-24, but that wouldn't cut it. So you would need 30-24. You need the winning team to score 30 points. Is that going to happen? Probably indoors.
One of the playoff rematches that we will see to start week number 1 in 2024. Of course, it was the Lions' first playoff victory against Matthew Stafford and the Rams last year in more than 3 decades. He's Scott Wetzel. I'm Ben Stevens. Football Full Circle returns tomorrow, noon Eastern time on Sports Grid Radio.